Ron stirred and slowly opened his eyes. Then he looked around frantically. Night had fallen, and he was back in the coupe as Kim headed down the road. Kim, where are we? Where's Ridley? Ron asked, almost demanding. He's gone, Ron, Kim replied, and I think he's planning to attack Middleton. Ron then remembered being tased by Kim as the red rage took over him again. You should have just let me kill him, Kim. I had him right there, but you went ahead and knocked me out, Ron snapped angrily. Now thanks to you, that bastard's probably gonna do God knows what once he gets to Middleton. Ron, the red rage was taking over your mind again, Kim shot back aggressively. If I hadn't done that, you may have done the same thing back in Japan. I knew Ridley would escape if I stopped you, but it was for your own good. I got a better control of it. Sure, it may have slipped out, but I could have ended him right then and then, Ron argued. That wouldn't have solved everything, and you know it, Kim rebutted defensively. We need to face the facts, Ron. You heard what was just in those tapes. Ridley and his organization infuriated by the government agency and law enforcement agency around the planet. Even global justice has been compromised. Even if we killed him, Aaron Faust would have just taken his place. You even said it yourself. Even so, the world would be far better off without him, Ron replied flatly. That monster destroyed half of Japan, killing millions in the process, kidnapped Bonnie and tortured her slowly to death. He caused so much pain and suffering, and he doesn't even deserve to live. I know Ridley basically lived as a prisoner by his sick father most of his childhood, but that's absolutely no excuse for what he's done. Ridley is an absolute madman with absolutely no morals or regards to human life. He only cares about power and control. He may have very well succeed if we didn't find a way to stop him. I don't know if we can, Ron, Kim said doubtfully. I never thought I'd say this, but I think Ridley might have very well win this one. And at any moment, he could give the order, and then a full take-on over the world would begin. With every nuclear weapon under his control and with the Laudorian technology, he could easily take full control of the world, and no one would be able to stop him. Ron knew for a full in fact that Kim was right, and he exactly didn't know what to do. How could anyone stop such a force like this? Even with my mystical monkey powers, I could never take down a global empire like that, Ron thought hopelessly. Then what do we do? Let's say Ridley succeeds and enslaves the whole world like he says he's going to? What do we do? Ron questioned. I don't know, Ron, Kim replied fearfully. This is far bigger than anything we could have ever faced before in our lives. The only thing I could think of is that we go underground with the remains of global justice and the others who believed in freedom and form a resistance movement to try and take back the country from Black Shadow. Assuming the resistance movement would even be possible, Ron said with a strong hint of doubt. I doubt that people would resist this rule, but if there might be anyone that believe in this perspective in order to allow him to rule the world, Ridley has an organization and spans over the global entire justice. It's obvious that he has followers who believe in a sick, twisted version of the order. Yes, that's true. But there would be many others who would believe in freedom and justice, like I said moments ago. It would take time, but at some point in the future, I believe a rebellion that would be possible, Kim replied. Then I take it we're heading for some very dark times ahead? Ron asked, losing hope. I never thought I'd say it, but it sure looks that way, Kim replied sadly. Once Black Shadow takes over the world, Ridley will rule by sword, and it doesn't look like there's anything else we could do to avoid it. Killing Ridley would be just the hinder of the Black Shadow takeover, until someone else takes over as their new commander. So we lose either way. I just can't believe it, Ron said, pounding his fist on the dashboard angrily. We've always defeated villains in the past. Always. It can't end like this. It just can't. Ron, none of us could have known what this was going on. Ridley and his organization are completely hidden from the public. And as far as the whole world was concerned, they all thought Ridley and his organization were gone after he was arrested and imprisoned in 1999, Kim inquired. If only if they look harder. They may have found him and stopped him, after he broke out of prison 5 years later, Ron muttered. But you heard everything on those tapes on what Ridley said. He went into hiding and destroyed all traces of existence, only leaving small bits of info behind on the dark web. And that wouldn't have helped the law enforcement to find him, Kim objected. Ron didn't even know what else to say. He could go on, but it still wouldn't change the fact that Ridley had won. After all the pain and suffering he had inflicted upon the world, the innocent lives he had taken, he still won. With the organization as big and as powerful as the one Ridley had commanded, he'd still be very easily take over the globe without any issues at all. Ron had no doubt that the resistant movements would around the globe fight against Ridley in tyrannical rule. But with every resource under the control, along with military power, it can be impossible. What about us, our families? How will we survive in a world ruled by criminals? Ron asked. I don't know, Ron. We'd probably have to do like the enemies of the Germany that we did back in World War II. They went into hiding to avoid being captured, Kim replied. Yeah, but a good majority of them didn't last long. Most of them were either captured, hunted down, or sent to those really horrid death camps. And knowing how insane Ridley is, he may just end up building mass-producing camps just like those if he had his way, Ron reminded her. Well, some of those that went into hiding survived until the end of the war, but it wasn't easy for them. They had to continuously be on the move, and even had to fight at some points in their lives in order to stay alive, Kim replied. I know all too well, Ron said bitterly. I've read about it in a history class a long time ago. Then you could have also known that the Empire don't last forever, especially the ones ruled by the sword. I can guarantee you that there will be a rebellion someday, and we'll be able to take back our freedom. It may not have happened overnight, or maybe even our lifetimes, but maybe our descendants will live to see the dawn of freedom once again, Kim reassured him. Ron said nothing. The idea of living in a world ruled by fear and force was not the type of world he ever wanted to live in, nor did he want anyone else to live in either. Ron remembered that one mission so long ago when Shigo had managed to take over and enslave the world in an alternate timeline, which was now gone. He and Kim had managed to return the past managed to take the past and undo the damage done to the lifetime. But Ron knew that would most likely going to happen wasn't something that could be fixed. Ridley's rule would be far worse than Shigo's rule that could ever will be, and he felt helpless to stop it. Ron knew that taking Ridley into custody wasn't an option anymore. He had to kill him, even if it meant Black Shadow would still find out the other leader to take his place. Ridley was too dangerous to be kept alive. Just then, and Kim's communicator began beeping, so Ron grabbed it since Kim was at the wheel. Upon answering it, the screen displayed Dr. Director, who appeared to be standing near the ruins of what appeared to be Global Justice HQ. Most of it had to be completely destroyed or on fire. Fire engines were blasting flames with their water cannons to put out the fire out. Betty had several cuts on her face and looked very distressed. Dr. Director, what happened? Ron exclaimed in horror at Global Justice destruction. You and Kim need to listen to me right now, Betty stated in a very serious voice. Global Justice was just attacked and destroyed by Ridley himself. He was inside that same fighter that killed my brother 2 days ago, and I got confirmation that after hearing his voice and seeing his face. Ron felt his heart sank, and his anger began to boil. One monster attacked me and Kim a few hours back in Darkwood. Let me tell you, we found so much evidence on that monster, and it's not even funny, he growled. You did? What did you find? Dr. Director practically demanded. Most of the info you found on the dark web that had the flash drive was tampered by Ridley himself, and we know the real history of his life and how Black Shadow rose to power. Me and Kim found several tape cassettes in the police station, courthouse, and his father's old mansion. Ridley came and attacked us after we started to leave town. Ridley then got away, though, Ron explained. I want this evidence the second you meet me. Speaking of that, I got very bad news for you both to hear, Betty replied. What's going on? What happened while we were gone? Ron asked, almost too afraid to hear the answer. What Betty said next almost made the whole world freeze around Ron and Kim and caused their bloods to go cold as ice. The hidden Global Justice base somehow got compromised an hour ago, and the Black Shadow raided it completely. Agent Nelson barely escaped with his life and informed me that Agent Lloyd and your families have all been captured. We don't know where they are right now, but I've got everyone in Global Justice searching for them, and the FBI feds are on it as well. I need both of you to follow the route. I am about to send you both to your communicators. It will lead you both to the hidden underground shelter where me and Agent Nelson are located. Dr. Drew Lipsky and Shigo are there too. They were the only ones who weren't at the base when it got raided, Dr. Director explained carefully. Kim screeched to a halt on the side of the 2-lane road, feeling the color drain on her face upon hearing it. And as for Ron, he was trembling with fear. No! How? Kim stammered in horror. No, that's impossible! How did they find it? How could they find it? Ron suddenly yelled. Believe me, I wish I had the answer, but I don't know how the Black Shadow managed to find it. I evaluated all the Global Justice assigned to the place, and they all came out as non-informers, so we have no info on how Ridley managed to find it. That doesn't matter now. What matters is that you revise with me and Agent Rivers so we can plan our next move, Dr. Director replied. What about our families? We can't just leave them at the mercy of that monster, Ron snapped. We have no info on where they have been taken, so there's not much we can do right now. However, I will need you and Kim to come to the destination that I have sent to your communicators so that I can gather the info you have found in Darkwood, Dr. Director replied. You can't trust anyone, Betty, Ron said in a serious tone. Ridley has infiltrated every government and law enforcement agency. Me and Kim found a video of him telling his entire life story, the real story, and Ridley had confessed to basically having sleeper agents in Global Justice. Ron, Gemini told me that before he was killed. There's no time for you to explain. I've got to go now. Head to the location I sent to your communicators, and I'll meet you there, Dr. Director ordered, then signed off. The GPS app on the communicator then opened and displayed a route following their current location of where Dr. Director wanted them to meet up. As it turns out, Kim and Ron were only 10 minutes away from Middleton, which was where their desired location was. Ron punched the dashboard, feeling more defeated than ever. His worst fears had become now a reality. Black Shadow had finally found their families and captured them. The thoughts of what happened to Bonnie ran through Ron's head as he imagined the worst things imaginable being done to them and by those monsters. Damn it all to hell! Ron yelled. Ron, you need to calm down. I'm terrified too, but panicking isn't going to help, Kim urged him as she resumed driving, now faster than ever before. I don't get it. How? Just how in God's name could Ridley have found the base? Ron yelled, now tears visible in her eyes. Ron, there's no way of knowing, but we need to focus on getting to this hideout, like Dr. Director told us to, Kim replied, wiping tears from her face. How is that going to help? We don't even know where Ridley took them. We've got to find them, Ron snapped. Ron, please calm down. This isn't going to... Kim started. Kim, look out in front of you, Ron shouted. Kim suddenly looked ahead and saw that large combat mecha suit they had fought at the abandoned train yards flying towards them. Kim threw on the brakes as the massive robotic suit skidded in front of them and struck the side of the coupe with a large heavy metal fist, sending it tumbling off the road into the grassy fields. The coupe rolled over several feet away from the road, then stopped on its side once it hit a tree. The airbags had deployed Kim and Ron and had been bashed around hard, but only sustained minor injuries like a few cuts from the shattered windows. Kim and Ron quickly undid their seatbelts and climbed out as a large mecha suit came towards them. As it approaches them, the voice of Ridley ran through the machine's head. I told you we'd meet again, didn't I? Ridley mocked from the side of the suit, his voice amplified. Ron then just jumped to the ground. His mystical monkey powers aurora began to glow bright blue all around him. I'm not holding back. Not this time, he growled. Then he charged at Ridley as Kim took cover behind the coupe and called for Dr. Director for help. Ridley charged at Ron in an attempt to strike him with his metal fist, but Ron quickly dodged it and kicked the mecha suit thing in the chest and sent it flying right straight to a nearby tree and caused sparks to shower from it. Ridley began getting up as Ron charged at him again, this time unleashing the blue fireball from his hands. Ridley blocked it with his chainsaw arm and quickly stood up, kicking Ron in the chest as he prepared to strike Ridley again. Ron was thrown back violently, but stood his ground and quickly sprung back up as Ridley rushed at him. I won't be defeated so like last time, Stoppable. My suit's been upgraded since the last time you nearly trashed it, Ridley snarled as he jumped aside and swung his chainsaw arm at Ron, attempting to slice him in half. Ron, however, reached up and actually grabbed both sides of the chainsaw in his palms and was about to come down onto his head. With the strength of several mountain apes, Ron began pushing back the medical arm as Ridley had been put more force into pushing it down. As he did, Ridley saw the hatred and rage in Ron's eyes and began worried that he may actually overpower him again. You think that means everything to me, you bastard! Ron roared, twisting the arm to side, actually breaking the chainsaw cleaned off. The chain unfurled and then slammed against the top of the mecha suit, slicing a deep gash into the armor and sent sparks flying everywhere. Ron then flew the broken chainsaw pole at the machine, shattered it into fragments of metal. He then jumped out of the mech and then grabbed his metal head. Ridley quickly tried grabbing onto Ron to throw him off, but the enraged man held on and began violently punching him in the eye several times. Since Ron's punches were amplified as his mystical monkey powers, the eyes eventually shattered, causing Ridley to lose all visual inside the suit. You meddlesome brat! Ridley raged, swinging his suit's metal hand around aimlessly. Ron quickly grabbed the metal arm and violently ripped it clean off from the mech, exposing tons of wire and crossbeams. Then he slammed the arm against the mecha suit's head violently. Where's our families? You frickin' monster! What have you done with them? Ron thundered, hitting the suit again and again. Ridley had tried to engage the suit's weapon systems, but Ron's thrashing had damaged them, so they wouldn't operate. His chainsaw arm had been busted as well, so he knew that fighting would be possible any longer, since Ridley had clearly underestimated Ron again and paid the price for it. Where are they? Answer me, goddammit! Ron screamed, smashing the arm against the suit, breaking it into pieces. Somewhere else, Ridley mocked, trying to activate the escape pod. He quickly found that it was damaged offline, however, and it made Ridley panic. Ron quickly grabbed the chest plate of armor and mech and tore it right off like a paper with its enhanced strength, revealing Ridley strapped inside. For the first time, Ron was able to see Ridley in person upon close, and he was hideous as the one looked in the evidence. Before Ridley could even react, Ron even grabbed him by the shirt and tore him clean out of the mech, and then ripping him off the straps of the machine. Tell me where they are, or I'll smash your skull in! Ron roared, throwing Ridley violently to the ground with so much force that it made a dent in the soil, knocking the wind out of him. Ridley coughed and rolled onto the side as Ron jumped down to attempt to strike him, giving Ridley enough time to get back up on his feet. Such unfair advantage you've got against me. I really don't like that, Ridley mocked as he quickly grew a hidden handgun from his side pants. Ron immediately saw the danger and dodged as Ridley fired several shots at him. Missing him by a few inches, Ron had quickly rushed towards Ridley with the speed of a cheetah and grabbed his wrist, using his hand's strength to attempt to make Ridley drop the gun. But he held it tightly. Seeing how Ridley wouldn't let go, Ron did something that shocked Kim as she watched from behind the fallen coop. Ron let out an angry yell and actually tore off Ridley's hand clean off from his forearm, causing a large amount of blood to spray all over the place. Ridley let out one of the loudest inhuman screams of agony as Ron and Kim ever heard as he fell to his knees. Grasping the bleeding stump where his once hand was, Ron quickly threw now the severed hand into the ground and smashed it with the gun to a pulp with his foot. Then he kicked Ridley across the ground and slammed him into a tree, where he laid on his side, screaming in agony. Ridley curled up into a ball as Ron approached him with his aurora, now glowing red as the red rage resurfaced within him. You will tell me where they are, Ron yelled in that deep demonic voice as he grew closer and closer to Ridley. Ridley hyperventilated as he tried to fight the immense pain from having his hand cleaned off ripped from his forearm, glaring up at Ron as he approached them. I can't, Ridley yelled in pain, not be able to speak due to the extreme pain that was going through. He had lost a ton of blood and was starting to grow faint and dizzy. Ron appeared to notice this as well, and reached down towards him with his fist, which now glowed bright red. Then he grabbed the bloody stump where Ridley's hand had once been, began cauterizing the wound, causing the burning flesh and the smell in the air to flower around him. Ridley's screams of agony intensified as Ron completely cooked the flesh from the bone in his hand where it had been. And then he looked at Ron straight in the face, felt the color drain from it. Ron's eyes had turned blood red, and his expression could only be described as one of pure hatred beyond anything Ridley had ever seen. He had not been the one to face a human being, but of a demon, of a bloodthirsty demon, eager to taste the first blood. For the first time in his life, Ridley felt truly terrified of Ron, and it was not like he fought him first in the train yards. He truly believed Ron could kill him, and he knew because of this Ron had already killed several of his men back in the train yards the other day. If Ron had killed once before, Ridley knew he'd have no issue killing again. Ron leaned forward and said in a snarly voice, "Where are our families?" Ridley trembled in fright before he could speak. Then he passed out from the extreme pain he was in. This angered Ron even further, and he raised a foot above Ridley's head as he collapsed unconscious. "Ron, no!" Kim yelled, running up to him. The sound of Kim's voice brought Ron out of his red rage-induced trance, and he felt subside slowly. The red aurora vanished as Kim ran up and grabbed Ron's shoulder. "Stop it, Ron. You're going to kill him if you keep this up. He is the only one who knows where our families are," she begged him. Ron glanced down at Ridley as he lay on the ground unconscious, breathing heavily. He wanted nothing more than just to kill him. But he knew Kim was right. Ridley was the only one who knew where his family and Kim's family is being kept, and if he killed Ridley, that info would die with him. Kim, I don't," Ron stammered, feeling his eyes begin to fill with tears. "We'll find them, Ron. I promise," Kim assured them, then embraced him tightly. Just then the sound of sirens could be heard, and Kim and Ron turned to see 5 Global Justice vans and a fleet of police cars approaching the area. They all stopped near Ridley's bust-up mech, and tons of Global Justice officers exited out of their vehicles and approached Kim and Ron. Dr. Director was one of them. "Kim, Ron, are you guys all right?" Betty asked upon reaching them. "Yeah, we just got rattled around," Kim replied, glancing back at the busted coupe. Betty then turned her head towards Ridley, and her eyes widened upon seeing the state he was in. "Is this Ridley Farkas himself?" she exclaimed in shock. "Yes. Let's just say he was very determined to surrender," Ron hissed, still seething with rage. "Ron, you covered in blood. What did you do to him?" Betty pressed. "Gave him a little thrashing. Don't panic, he's not dead. He just got knocked out," Ron replied coldly. "You call this thrashing?" Betty pointed at Ridley's burned stumpy forearm where his left hand had once been. "He tried to shoot me, so I disarmed him," Ron replied without emotion. "Kim, Ron looks very unstable right now. Is he all right?" Betty asked with concern in her voice. He's worried about our families, and I think it's caused him to lose control again," Kim replied with a sad tone of voice, clearly worried about her family as well. "The red rage, I presume?" Betty questioned, and Kim nodded. "I'm fine now. We need to find our families and Agent Lloyd," Ron snapped. "Ron, please try and calm down. I know you're scared and fearing for our family's lives. I am too, but we can't panic or lose emotions like this, or we'll never find them," Kim urged him. "She's right, Ron. You need to calm down. And besides, we've got Ridley in custody now. We'll interrogate him once he wakes up, but he'll need medical condition for what is wound of his," Dr. Director said, glancing at Ridley's handless forearm. "We just can't take him to a random hospital. There may be Black Shadow informers waiting for us there," Kim replied. "I know, and that's why we'll be taking him to a secret location I sent you to before Ridley ambushed you both. I also have good news about Agent Florence," Betty informed him. "You do?" "Yes. The police got a call from an anonymous citizen in Lowerton saying that they could have sworn they saw Agent Florence being dragged into the abandoned train yards. I want you two of my agents to head down there and check the place out. Ron will go with me to the hideout where we will interrogate Mr. Farkas here for the locations of your families, Dr. Director informed. Anonymous? I don't like the sound of that. It may be a trap. I should go, Ron suggested in a cautious voice. No, I will need you to stay with me, since you've got the strength and power to handle Ridley if he tries anything funny. Kim and my agents would be fine. If there's any sign of danger, Kim and them would radio me, and we'll send backup, Dr. Director replied sternly. But Doc, Ron started. Ron, I'll be okay, Kim assured him. Ron turned to Kim, and then she smiled at him, then embraced her tightly. Kim, I'm just so worried that I'll lose you too. What if Ridley has backup waiting for you and ambushes you like just now? Ron stammered. I'm sure everything will be fine, Ron. I've handled myself before, Kim insisted, still smiling. Knowing that there wasn't anything Ron could do to change Dr. Director's mind, he agreed to let Kim go. I love you, KP. Please be safe, Ron whispered to Kim as they both hugged. I'll come back, Ron. I promise, Kim said. Then the two of them kissed as Dr. Director and two Global Justice agents restrained Ridley in a set of escape-proof lever cuffs. As they dragged him towards one of the Global Justice vans and placed him inside, then called out to Betty and told them that they were ready to go. Kim, Ron, we've got to go now, Dr. Director replied. Kim and Ron both separated from each other, and then they went their separate ways. Kim headed to one of the van with the three other Global Justice agents, and Ron went with Dr. Director and two other agents, as well as gathered any evidence from Dark Wood out of the remains of Kim's coupe, and took it along with them. Thankfully, it hadn't been damaged when the coupe crashed, so it was all still in perfect condition. As they all left the area, a few of the cops followed the Global Justice vans to ensure their safety to Betty's hideout. Ron glared down at the unconscious Ridley in the seats across from him, fully intent on the bleeding Ridley dry of all the info on the whereabouts of his family and Kim's family once he woke up. Ridley coughed and woke up as water splashed all over his face. He found himself lying what appeared to be on a cot beside a small square room resembled a police interrogation room, and Ron stood in front of him with a metal bucket in his hands. Dr. Director stood outside the room near a small window, with Global Justice agents looking on what was going on. Ridley also noticed that he had been handcuffed to the cot by one of his remaining hand. He had bandages all over himself, and Control's stump, where his left hand was used to be, was all bandaged up. Rise and shine on you pile of shit, Ron snarled. Well now, that isn't very custom to when waking someone up, Ridley sneered in a mocking voice. Ron replied by backhandling his face, then said, Don't you play coy with me, you frickin' spawn of hell. You're going to tell me what I know, and you're going to tell me now. Ridley glanced up at Dr. Director in the window, then back at Ron and said, the good cop, bad cop routine. Nothing new to me. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it isn't, given the fact that you did 5 years of the clink before busting out, Ron snapped. Don't think your little mind games are going to work on me, Ridley, and I highly suggest you cooperate, because I can't tell you how tempted I am to smash your frickin' skull right now. So much hate coming from the master of mystical monkey powers himself, Ridley taunted. I might be inclined to speak, if you would stop being such a blowhard towards me. Ron, calm yourself down. We need answers from him, Dr. Director ordered through a PA speaker hanging above the door. You heard the lady, Stoppable. Best to calm your nerves. If you want to hear what it is you want, Ridley mocked. Ron was attempted to strike Ridley again, but he held his ground and tried to calm himself down. Fine then, Ron said simply, but with still coldness of his voice. For starters, I want to know what you did with my family and Kim's family, and I want to know now. Well, I did say earlier that they were smashing me around and that they were somewhere else, but I'm not going to say just yet, Ridley replied coldly. Ron felt his temper boiling again, but he held back and tried not to lash out again. He found it very tempting to do, and who could blame him? After all, right in front of Ron was the very same man who nuked Japan, killed Bonnie, Wade's mother, and hurt so many other innocent people. Ridley was pure evil incarnate, and this made so tempting for Ron just to end him. Stop stalling me and tell me where they are. You are not fooling me at all, Ridley. You know damn well where they are, and you're going to tell me, Ron snapped. And why should I? It's not like it's going to help you stall the inevitable. I know you and your girlfriend found those tapes in my old mansion, and if you paid any attention to what I said to them, you'll know that it's pointless. Face it, you've lost. My organization is already in the process of planning to take over the world, and you can't stop it, Ridley shot back. You think you and those people are just going to sit back and let you do what? No, they'll fight to you to the bitter end. Ridley, history has always proven that tyrants bent on ruling the world through training and oppression, and eventually be overthrown from your power by people who believe in freedom and justice, Ron said. They may try, but you clearly have no idea how powerful my organization truly is, Ridley replied, sneering. As I've said in those tapes, I've infiltrated and manipulated every single governmental power in the planet, along with every law enforcement agency on this planet. Even the CAI. I have already just non-informers amongst their ranks, but also sleeper agents that will respond whenever I give them the order to commence the takeover. I could do that at any point of time, and so could my high-ranking officers. However, though, the Laudorian technology has made it so much easier. I could easily turn Russia's own nukes into itself if I ever so desire. And the same goes with all the nuclear nations around the globe. Now imagine what people could do once I tell them. Either obey my rule or face a nuclear extinction. You expect me to believe that you destroy the planet with nukes and wipe everyone out? What's the point of ruling a world ahead by nukes and poisoned with radiation? Ron questioned in disbelief. Oh, believe me, Stoppable. There will be people who will see my perspective of a world ruled by Black Shadow, and they will accept my rule. You should know that there were many people who even supported people's ideals in World War II, and that won't be any different with me. Those who serve my empire are willing to be allowed to live, and I shouldn't need to wipe out the global clean. I could have them all relocated underground until the radiation is scrubbed clean from the surface of the earth. You should know that Laudorian technology is made possible. It's actually being won in Japan as we speak, Ridley explained. Upon Ridley mentioning Japan, Ron felt his anger boil. He hadn't forget about that one bit. Speaking of Japan, answer me this. Ron leaned forward with a serious expression. Why? Just why did you have to do it? What the hell did Japan ever do to you that was so horrible that you felt the need to blast with a nuclear missile? Millions died because of that. Ridley scoffed as if it meant nothing. Then said, "Teh, I knew you already know the answer to that. A ninja's clan can be quite deadly, and how should I say this? Opposing a force to global empire, such as the one I plan to create, I can't have them going underground and forming a massive resistance against me, can I?" Ron clenched his fist tightly and said, "So I was right. You did it to get rid of the Yamanochi ninja clan, didn't you?" Ridley smirked and said, "They didn't leave me much of a choice. Besides, ninjas are old school, and their time ended a long time ago. That doesn't give you the right to choose who lives or dies, nor does it justify you bombing Japan with nukes. Why even use nukes if you're only targeting the Yamanochi ninja clan? And why use a weapon of mass destruction to kill millions?" Ron demanded. "Why a nuke? Well, I guess you could say it was poetic as a way to get the job done," Ridley said with an evil grin. "Poetic? What the hell was that even supposed to mean?" Ron snapped. Ridley scoffed again, and then said, "It's not the first time Japan's ever tasted the power of nuclear hellfire. You know why Japan got its first taste of it back in 1945. I guess you could say that it was my way of saying, if you tasted something once, why not taste it again?" Ron felt his blood run cold upon hearing this. Ridley was sure truly evil, and he was cunning. It made Ron sick. You sick son of a bitch! You had to create a mockery of Japan's horrible history of the atomic bombings, didn't you? Didn't you? Ron yelled angrily. "So what if I did? It's not like anyone had to care about those stupid Japs. They can burn in all nuclear hell for all I care. Ridley smirked with a nasty laugh. Upon hearing that racial slur, Ron grabbed Ridley by the throat and yanked him up towards his face.